It's quite difficult to make a video about punctuation. Punctuation is, of course, useful only for written language, not spoken, which is what I'm doing now, of course, speaking. You may wonder why I chose this particular picture behind me from the AI generator. I guess it's to show, writing and punctuation, but you can look in the book and see all the most common punctuation marks that we use. I didn't really know much about punctuation. I mean, we learn a tiny bit of it in school in England, but it's sort of, you almost, I don't think I was ever told how to use a semicolon to separate lists or how to properly use it in any class. My dad taught me, but he's an ex um, college teacher. So I learned it from my dad, but I didn't learn it from any English classes. So, and I've sort of avoided talking about punctuation because I find it rather tedious, rather boringly difficult. But it is useful. And if you know how to punctuate, how to use the right marks in the right places, it means that it's easier to read what you've written. If you have your full stops, or Americans call periods, in the right places, it's good. And if you know how to use semicolons, that's not that useful. But when you're making a long list, separate the items with semicolons. You can just use commas. I think for most people who are learning English as a second language, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You're going to stick to full stops or periods, as they call it in America, commas, question marks, and quotations. That's really all you need. Occasionally, there'll be an exclamation mark or exclamation point, but don't use them too much. Too much exclamation points, it's like you're shouting. It's sort of childish. I read a guide that if you're writing a novel, you're allowed one exclamation point per novel. And so if you've got 400 pages, you can have one exclamation point in that. What to say? The most useful, as I say, those commas, full stops, and question marks are what you use all the time. And you hardly need any explanation of those, I think. Just one thing to note, where to put the punctuation in a quote. When you do a quote, you start with the quote marks. Quote mark starts here, and then what you're going to say with a capital letter. Hello, 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 hello. And then put the punctuation followed by the close quote marks. So it will be hello, 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 with a capital H. Hello, 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 quote marks. Hello, 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 comma, close quote marks. He said, with lowercase h. It's easier to see if you write it down and do it. The other thing to do is to read a lot. If you read a lot, or even just a little, you can see how punctuation is presented. So it's almost wasting your time, me talking about it. Look in a book and see how it works. And good luck. I'll tell you one very quick story. I had a newspaper friend, colleague, co-worker in the newspaper business who used to hate going through and checking commas. And he used to say, but when you're speaking, you don't use commas. And I was like, yeah, but we do. You just don't see them. When you have a pause, if you're writing, when you have a pause, comma, then you put punctuation. So it's a skill for writing, not so much for speaking, of course. Okay, anyway, I think there are three questions, weren't there? Hold on, let me find this. Let me find these three questions. Number one, what's harder to get right in English, punctuation or spelling? They're both necessary. But number two, why does English have such illogical spelling rules? Number three, what's the hardest skill for you to master in English? How about in Japanese? Okay, there you are. Something to think about. And if you want some homework, write a short paragraph about your day. Try to use quotation marks, commas, and a list separated by semicolons. Semicolons. Have a go and see how you do. Okay, I will see you again. Thank you very much. Goodbye.